So thank you all for being here. I'm Kevin Smith, Director of Enrollment Management. And this is a session focusing on academics at Walnut Hill School for the Arts. So we're going to go through our various curriculums and really give you a sense of what the academic life is like here for a student, joined by faculty and current students in the program. And at the end of the session, we will have time for questions, and we should be able to answer all of the questions submitted in advance. But if you have questions throughout the session, feel free to put them into the chat, and we'll get to those at the end. So I'll go ahead and kick it over to Tom Keenan.
Hello, I'm Tom Keenan. I'm the head of the Math and Science Department at Walnut Hill. Though I've worn many hats here in my time, I'm also currently a dorm parent. I've also worked with student life as the dean of the 10th grade. It's my 12th year here at Walnut Hill, and I think it's my 30th year teaching, if I'm counting correctly. And it's a great place to teach. I'm going to pass it on to Monica.
Hello, my name is Monica Lee. I am the head of the World Languages Department. I teach French and Spanish at Walnut Hill and have also previously taught ELL. And I have been here the exact same number of years as Tom. It's my 12th year. Jason.
Hi, I'm Jason Stumpf. I'm the head of the Humanities Department. I primarily teach English. And this is my 15th year at Walnut Hill. And I'm excited to be here tonight. I'm going to pass it on to Daniela.
Hi, my name is Daniela. I'm a 10th grade writing film and media arts major, and I'm a day student. I'll pass it on to Edwina.
Hi, I'm Edwina. I'm a senior writing film and media arts major, and I'm a boarding student here at Walnut Hill. I'll pass it on to Coral.
Hi, I'm Coral. I'm a visual art major, and this is my 2nd year, and I'm a junior at Walnut Hill. And I'll pass it on to Catherine.
Hi, I'm Catherine. I'm a senior dance major. It's my 4th year here, and I'm a boarding student. I'll pass it on to Alana.
Hi, I'm Alana. I'm a junior visual arts major, and I'm a day student.
All right. I'm going to give a little bit of an overview of the academic program, and then we'll kind of get further and further into some details and then into your questions. So at Walnut Hill, we take seriously the opportunities that come with teaching young artists. In their art, they're asked to really think a lot about skill building and to show their minds at work. And so our curriculum on the academic side is really designed to engage and leverage their artistic habits of mind. Each of the academic disciplines, like the arts, is a language of inquiry and a way to be curious about the world. And so, as I said, our courses are really designed to engage those artistic habits of mind and help students grow them in different contexts. We teach student artists to observe closely, to engage, persist, solve, and create, and help them transfer the skills that they're practicing in their art into the various academic disciplines. Our courses really center on what students are making, doing, and writing. So we really emphasize hands-on engagement, project-based learning, collaboration, and writing as process as well as product. And in all of our disciplines, we're encouraging students to value multiple perspectives. Those are things that we share in the academic program, and those are things that we share with the arts. Now I'm going to pass it to Tom.
Hi, I'm just going to talk about the basic structure of our academic day. And if you could add all the notes there so we can look at them as I speak about them. The academic day has 4 blocks, A, B, C, and D, and students can take classes in 3 of the 4 blocks so that they have time for lunch, an essential part of the student's day. They're longer blocks, they're 70 minutes long, and most classes meet for a semester every single day of the week, Monday through Friday, with the exception of math, which meets 2 days a week, but doesn't go for a semester, but goes all year. Built into the middle of the academic day is X block, and that is a time when all faculty and students are available so that they can meet to provide individualized support, also to help students our students often have very busy schedules with auditions and performances, and so they might miss a class here or there. And that is a time that is set aside for students and faculty to meet. The full academic program would be 5 courses a year. You're basically taking 2.5 a semester because math is spread out over the course of a year. So it's kind of like half of credit of math each semester, but a full credit of English, history, world language, and science. And at this point, it might be a good time to pause and maybe hear from some of our students. If anyone wants to say, their experiences, how you experience this schedule of an academic day with 2.5 classes at a time. Feel free to jump in.
Sure, I'll jump in. I really love this schedule, especially the 8:20 start time. It really helps me as a day student in particular be able to get to campus at a reasonable time. And I appreciate having the amount of time that we have for each class, especially to just be able to get what I feel like is a really sufficient amount of time for each class, especially since many of them are only a semester long. And I really love having X block there to be able to meet with teachers. And if I have tests that I need to finish, be able to do it then, be able to go over homework, all of that stuff.
Thank you, Alana.
Yeah, kind of to add to what Alana was saying, as a day student, it's sometimes hard to get homework done at night when you are like staying late for rehearsals or working on projects with friends or boarding students. So usually for me, I use that time to meet with teachers that like I'm struggling a little more in their class. So like, for example, in my math class, I might stay and complete my homework with the teacher because it also helps me like grasp the subject more. And it also just offers like one-on-one time most of the time with the teacher.
Thank you, Daniela. Jason, do we want to move on to the next topic?
So now we're going to each talk a little bit about our departments. I'm the head of the Humanities department, as I mentioned, and that's our English and history program. And so I have up here our mission as a department, which ties in with the mission of the school. We come to Walnut Hill to be meaning makers, whether we're in our arts class or whether we're in an English class reading a poem or a history class studying the past. And so again, we're trying to put the work that students are doing in conversation with the work that we're doing in our academic classes. Our department really focuses on these 3 core skills areas. What we refer to as OIA, O-I-A, observation, inference, and analysis. These are close reading strategies that help students discover ideas that they can explore and to really give them a vocabulary for grappling with some difficult texts and difficult historical material. Writing to learn. So a centerpiece of a lot of our classes is the writing that happens within the class period. Writing not just to demonstrate what they know, but writing to try to figure out what we know or figure out what our questions are. So that's a practice that we have throughout our curriculum. And it's really informed by work that we've done as a department with the Bard Institute of Writing and Thinking from Bard College. And then thinking historically, being able to ask historical questions, being able to be curious about the world, having the vocabulary, the skills, and the content that one needs in order to be curious in a fruitful way and to engage with others in that curiosity. This is our English curriculum moving from left to right, so from 9th grade to senior year. And you can see it at various places in our curriculum. There are courses called Writing and Thinking. That's where we really introduce and focus on some of these core skills, particularly of the OIA skills, the observation, inference, and analysis skills. So students who join us in the freshman year are experiencing that in their freshman and sophomore years. And then if students join us in their junior or senior years, we have a special English class for them, which is really designed to be at a junior and senior level, but to still have that vocabulary in place. For students who are emerging from the ELL program, our English language learners, they might be in ELL writing and thinking, so a kind of bridge class into the mainstream humanities program. And on the English side, we have one elective, which is an introduction to creative writing. Then in the history curriculum, students have to take at least 2 credits to graduate, and one of those needs to be US history. But I would say it's typical that students here take 3 or 4, depending on when they join us and other aspects of their schedule. And so you can see in 9th and 10th grade, we focus on world history, and then US in the 11th grade and electives. Though depending on, again, on when students are joining us, sometimes these things move around. Some students have joined us and they've taken US history in the 10th grade at a previous school. And so we have electives to offer them. They can enter into that pool, as can many of our juniors. Here too, we have a bridge class for English language learners, which satisfies their US history requirement and is really designed to support their skills as English language learners, and also to be a US history class for students who have not had versions of that at earlier points. So students coming from other parts of the world. And then we have a menu of electives primarily for seniors, but some juniors as well, to give students opportunities to match a course with something they're curious about. I wonder if we could have a couple of the students talk a little bit about electives they're taking this year, and what excites them about that elective.
I took US history this semester, and I liked how our class, the teacher gave us a lot of resources from different websites like books and all that to really go deep into the history. I learned a lot, and by doing some activities the teacher gave us, we like had a lot of questions. We did our own research to kind of figure out what the answers were and kind of go into the broader sense of our like society. And so I really enjoyed taking US history this semester.
Yeah, thanks. Anybody else?
Yeah, I'll go. So I'll be taking 20th century US history through art and media this year. And I'm really excited to approach US history through something that I consider as a rather innovative medium, because I feel like as a school full of artists, art lives so close to our hearts, and to see it so deeply intertwined with academics here is a very interesting opportunity for me, and I'm excited to see how this class will help me flourish as an artist.
Thank you. Now I'm going to pass it back to Tom.
Thank you, Jason. So you'll see throughout this presentation, there's a lot of parallels between the way we approach all the academic classes. And I think that one thing that is true in every academic class, and the students here can chime in on this, is we try to keep the center on the student at the center of the learning. I think Jason mentioned it's about what the students are doing and experiencing and writing. And the math and science program is no different than that. We focus on the opportunities to learn through experience and doing inquiry that is basically directed by the students and where their interests and where their questions are, to ultimately discover some sort of pattern in nature or fundamental logical truth. And so to that end, that process can be a little bit slower, but you know, our thinking is that by going into far greater depth and letting students have the opportunity to really think deeply about what they're learning, it develops a much deeper and profound understanding of what they're trying to learn. Jason, could we see the next slide, which goes to the math curriculum? So our math program here is a little different than I think your typical school. Instead of labeling classes things like algebra and geometry, we call the three first courses in the sequence Math 1, Math 2, and Math 3. And the reason for that is mathematics is really not a field that can be broken apart into discrete things. Mathematics is a way of looking at the world and communicating, you know, numerically and logically that transcends any individual discipline. So in a Math 1 class, you will study some algebra and some geometry and some trigonometry and some statistics and some probability. But as you move through the sequence, it gets progressively more challenging. We also offer electives currently, statistics and the math applications class, which has a focus on personal finance, which, you know, is an area that parents probably know that their high schoolers probably haven't had much experience, you know, managing bank accounts and budgets and whatnot, and you're sending them off into the world with a lot of nice theoretical training in math, but that's an opportunity to have some practical knowledge as well. As you get to the higher level classes, Math 3, pre-calculus, and calculus, there are grade prerequisites and teacher recommendations to make sure that we have all of our students appropriately challenged. We want students challenged, but not overwhelmed. And so there are kind of checks and balances in place to make sure that happens. Maybe now we can take a minute to hear what a couple of students in the program they've experienced our math classes. Maybe Alana or Catherine, if you want to start by talking, because you've ended up in calculus, both of you. So you've had some experience with a few classes to get there.
Yeah. I think the thing that's so unique about this program is how personalized it is to each student and how the teachers really, you know, think about what each student is ready to do and where they'll best be and how to support their learning in all different circumstances. And I know that just being in my calculus class, there's just a wide range of not only interest, but also like kind of speed at which you learn the subject. And, you know, in the same class, I'll have a student who's asking questions about, you know, higher levels of calculus, and I'll have kids who want to go over something that we learned in pre-calc, and just all different kinds of, you know, interests going kind of in the range of the subject that really support the learning. And last year, I also started in Math 3, and I realized that it wasn't really the speed I wanted to be going at, because I felt like at the previous school that I was at, that I had covered some of the material already. So I had a talk with Mr. Keenan, and I was able to take a placement test and go to pre-calculus, which I think really benefited me and my learning and the speed at which I was able to kind of calculate that, I guess. Thank you,
Alana. Daniela, now you started as a freshman in Math 1, and you're currently a sophomore in Math 2. Probably a very different experience from Alana, who, you know, wanted to move out of Math 3 into pre-calculus as a sophomore. So can you talk a little bit about your experience in math?
For sure. So I would say coming into the math curriculum, math just hasn't been my favorite subject, but I had Miss Bannock as my Math 1 teacher, and she really worked with me to just like get over how much I didn't like doing math. It was more just because I was struggling, and she took the time to slow things down with me and like make sure that I was really understanding. And one thing that I'll also say is I find retakes really helpful. Retakes and corrections are something that the math department does that I really, really appreciate. Because not only are you replacing your grade or like getting a better grade, for me, it's less about that. And it's more about I can know what I did wrong and do better on the next test or homework assignment. And in math too, I have Heather Lambert, and she's been really generous with her X block time, like I mentioned before, really slowing things down for me again. And in a class setting where you're having these discussions, sometimes for people that aren't as strong in said curriculum or like feel a little, scared to share, oh, I don't understand this when everyone else understands it. So having the X block time with the math teachers has been very helpful.
Thank you, Daniela. Jason, now maybe we can move on to the science curriculum. So our sciences are extremely hands-on lab intensive. I think something that Coral said when she was talking about her experiences in US history, I think the history classes here, the students are actually put in the role of professional historians. You look at primary sources, you do the work that historians do. It's not reading a textbook where someone else tells you what you're supposed to know. It's much more like an authentic experience of the historian. The science classes have a very similar philosophy. We want our students to be scientists. We're not here to memorize a whole bunch of facts out of a book. Let's face it, now you can find out on the internet any fact you want to know in a millisecond. So that's really not the purpose of a science education. We see it. It's more of understanding how science works. What is the difference between science that's done well and science that's not done well, and having the ability to look at someone's methods and their data and to make logical conclusions from that, and understand the difference between quality science and not quality science. Most students take the 3 level 1 or core science classes: biology, chemistry, and physics, in that order, though they're not beholden to take them in any order. You can take them in any order you want. But you'd want to have those level 1 classes before moving on to level 2 electives: chemistry 2, anatomy and physiology, environmental science, and food science. I'm going to take a minute now maybe to hear from some students who have been through a good chunk of the program and are kind of moving on to electives. I believe Catherine and Edwina, are you guys signed up for food science this spring? And maybe you can say a little bit about why you chose that elective, what you're looking forward to, and what has been your general experience in the science program so far.
Sure, I can go. I am taking food science this semester, so I don't know what the class is like yet, but I've heard really positive things about it. And I'm really interested in going into kind of the study of like the body. And I was excited about both anatomy and food science. But my experience so far in the science department has been really positive, even though sometimes I struggle when the workload gets pretty heavy. I feel like the classes have been paced really well, and we have a lot of time in class to do like our labs and different experiments so that we don't feel like everything is rushed, and that I can feel like really proud of the work that I turn in. And Mr. Keenan is always super available. You can come to him anytime you want during X block for extra help. And so that's been really helpful. And I've really found myself enjoying, especially physics, a lot more than I thought I would, because of how hands-on it was, and because the labs are really fun and were very sort of real life scenarios versus something that seemed kind of far away or very just like academic. We did labs that seemed very close to our real life, so we were able to relate to them more.
Thank you, Catherine. Edwina, can I call on you to maybe say a bit too about your science experience and why you chose food science as an elective?
Of course. So, similar to Catherine, I've heard very good things about food science, and I was drawn to this course because I feel like science about nutrition is in general quite complex. So, to have this course is a really precious opportunity for me so I can incorporate it into my daily life. And my science experience at Walnut Hill has been really, really positive. I remember before coming to Walnut Hill, science was a really touchy subject for me, but I feel like I've learned many innovative research techniques as well as ways of thinking, because before taking science classes at Walnut Hill and studying physics under Mr. Keenan, I was really rough and I tended to not prioritize the small details. But now I'm definitely a much more thorough thinker and a more careful student.
Edwina, yeah, thank you very much for that last remark you made about how the sciences maybe kind of changed your thinking, attention to detail, because one of the things I think that Walnut Hill School for the Arts has going for it, and the students can talk to this about the arts program. The arts program is amazing because the students are constantly getting feedback on little things they need to do to improve to achieve a bigger goal. And the academic program is very similar, right? That there's a constant interaction between the students and the teacher to give students feedback on their work. And as I think, Alana was mentioning, to make it an individualized approach and say, okay, what does each student need to kind of bring them forward and help them progress? And the teachers, I think, are very good about identifying what that is and providing that kind of targeted feedback to the students to help them progress. With that said, I think I'm going to pass it on to Monica Lee to talk about the World Language Program.
Thanks, Tom. So the slide that you're seeing here is actually a bulleted version of our department's mission. I think, Jason, if you don't mind, you can keep going. I think there might be a couple more. I would say you can stop there. I would say that the main aim of our department is to give students an immersive experience in the language. We offer 3 different languages under the umbrella of the World Languages Department. We offer Spanish, French, and also English language learning for those students, for whom English is not their native language. And yeah, I would say we really try to celebrate language and encourage communication and place a lot of emphasis on the production using the language. So in order to do that, we actually start by having students read from the very beginning, because we found that reading gives them a lot of content to talk about. And then, yeah, Jason, can you go on to the next slide? Oh, yeah. So this is the sequence. It looks very short. In Spanish and French, we have levels 1 through 6, and in ELL, we have levels intermediate and advanced. For both Spanish, French, and also ELL, placement is determined by a 2-step process. There's a written placement exam that students have to complete, and also an oral interview component in order for their placement to be finalized in the language. And to kind of go back, the next slide will actually show you all the core skills that we work on, which are these 5 on the left. So speaking, writing, reading, listening, and also culture. As you can see, so these are actually, I would say, very brief objectives for each level. So for level 1, you're going all the way down from speaking all the way to culture, and then it goes across from levels 1 through 6. So we are trying to build those skills in level 1 and then just keep adding to those skills so that students have more vocabulary and more grammar so that they're able to express themselves in varied ways. I think that the students who are on this call actually are in several different places along the sequence. So if they could speak a little bit about what their experience has been like, that would be really great.
Hey, Gabby, you want to come in for this?
Catherine, do you want to start?
Yeah, sure, I can start. So I started in Spanish 2. I just completed Spanish 7, which I guess doesn't exist anymore, but
well, it's on there. It's past 6.
Oh, I got you. But so I came to Walnut Hill. I wasn't especially passionate about Spanish, but I became really interested in the full immersion program. When I first came to the first class, I was a little bit overwhelmed. I was like, oh my goodness, I wasn't used to speaking this much. I had always just gotten vocabulary lists and then gotten a quiz on them. But being able to have that much opportunity for speaking has really helped me. And now I feel very confident in my speaking skills and feel like I could probably go to a Spanish speaking country and speak with someone there and carry a conversation well. It also, I just, sorry, I just lost my train of thought. But yeah, I've really enjoyed the language department, and I've become a tutor for students too. I think that the way it's developed just really helps you be able to understand both not just the language, but also the culture around it, as mentioned on the slide, which just really helps you, because I think it's important not to forget that like there's a whole culture behind the language you're learning. So yeah.
Yeah, I'm adding on to what Catherine said. I took French for about 2 years before coming to Walnut Hill. And on my first year, which is last year, I started in French 3 and I just finished French 4. And for me, it was a very similar experience because at Walnut Hill, your classes are very much you just use the language you're learning for the whole class. So you're constantly listening and speaking the language you're trying to learn, which really helps on developing your skill. And I could definitely say that I've improved so much for the past 2 years at Walnut Hill. And because we have such a big diversity of students who speak other languages than the languages we have here, we students, we support each other by helping on the information of what we know and some things that we haven't learned so far, and it's very helpful to have that kind of experience.
Oh, you go.
Oh, no, you go.
Okay. I'm in French 4 right now. I came into Walnut Hill freshman year having not touched French with a 10-foot pole. Like, it was completely foreign to me. I took Latin through middle school. And so when I got here and was, told classes were going to be fully in French and we were going to have to read, I was initially like super overwhelmed, had no idea how I was going to get through it. But actually, I learned so much quicker than any other language just by being in that environment. And also being able to just be confused, just like completely confused and being lost, but being able to communicate and reorient yourself with people who are also confused has also been really helpful. Just having the ability to be vulnerable and get stuff wrong and then try again and be able to, the success you feel when you do have those conversations, you make those connections, you get the pronunciation right. Like right now, I'm reading a book in my own time in French. So the progress I've been able to make in the past 3 years has been just great for me.
Yeah, I really agree with everything that everyone has said so far. For me, I speak Italian at home with my family, and one of the things I would say is I've never spoken French in my whole life, but on my first day of French class in freshman year, I remember sitting in the class and being like, oh, this is a lot like those big family dinners where everyone's just speaking like Italian around you and you're like just trying to hold on to one conversation. But I would say that the immersive experience has taught me so much more than like doing Duolingo to try to learn like some random language. Like I really have enjoyed also the way the class is structured. Like, yeah, we might be reading a long text, but then like in Miss Lee's class, we were like singing songs and we were all really good at them. Like that was really fun, doing stuff like um that engaged students, and like we would laugh about it, but we also had like we were getting our pronunciation down and we were learning about the song and the artist. Stuff like that really helped to keep the class like engaging and learn more about the culture as well.
Yeah, similar to Daniela, I also really love the structure of the language classes here at Walnut Hill. I think that the curriculum is well paced enough so that people who are entering like mid-year or halfway through the language program here, they can catch up and they can easily immerse themselves in the classes here. Because I started at Spanish 2 when I was a freshman, and I took 2 years off and I started Spanish 4 as a junior. So I was really worried about that gap. But the approaches that Miss Lee took, they were varied, but the practice that I received and the rest of the class received was always very consistent and very intensive. So we could learn about the language in a multitude of different ways while also absorbing everything that was valuable to it, such as connection and culture.
Thank you, everyone. I think now we are ready to answer some questions.
Great, thank you all so much. So I'll throw out some of the pre-submitted questions to you all. And as I mentioned earlier, if you have additional questions, please feel free to drop them in the chat, and we'll hopefully answer all of those questions. So here's one for the faculty. Are you able to take honors or AP classes? I know the answer, so if you could explain the reason for the response you're about to give, that would also be appreciated.
I can start with that one. So there is no tracking at Walnut Hill. We have small classes, and I think as you've heard in this presentations, there's students from a range of backgrounds and abilities and paces at which they learn. So what we really try to do is approach each student as an individual learner. And also with regards to AP, I was an AP teacher before I came to Walnut Hill. And one of the challenges I found with an AP teacher is the College Board was focused on a high stakes test at the end of the year as really the goal, the learning objective. Here, we don't necessarily see as much of the value in that objective of just preparing for a test. We want the students learning to be more authentic, and also their assessment of what they've learned to be more authentic and genuine. So that's why it's not that we don't do things at a very high and complex level. It's just that we're not really geared towards preparing kids towards those types of standardized tests.
And I would just add that there's a lot of, I think that in some ways that question could be read as, what opportunities are there for choice for students to find places where they can really push themselves and find a program that's really custom tailored to them. And I think both within courses and within our menu of courses, there are a lot of opportunities for students to find courses that match their interest, to kind of choose their challenges, and within classes to take ownership, to exercise their curiosity. So I think a lot of that lives, a lot of those values live within our curriculum.
Just to add something quickly from the World Languages Department side, I would say that even though we don't offer honors and AP, in the past, we've had students take the AP exam on their own and have done very well. I would say that the number of students that choose to take the AP exam are fewer and fewer, because once they are admitted to the college or university of their choice, students, when they do better on the institution's placement exam, they are actually able to receive more number of credits than getting the highest score on the AP. And I would say that we have a pretty good record of students doing pretty well on the language placement exams once they're admitted to college. So yeah.
Great. Krista, do you want to ask your question?
Sure, thank you. So we kind of have a unique situation. My daughter that's applied is, we're a military family. We currently live overseas in South Korea. We've lived in a number of different places, and she's gone to a number of different kind of schools. So I guess my question is, like, how do you feel the academics? I know you said you've had people from all over the world, so you can obviously cater to that. What about somebody specifically who's had such a wide range? Do you feel like they still kind of thrive there?
Yeah, I can speak to that a little bit. we have, not, as you mentioned, not only students from all over the world, but I think the students who find us, the path to Walnut Hill, it takes many forms. And I think that there are students who have tried out, families who have tried out a lot of different learning environments and learning cultures as they're trying to find the right fit, or as their other family circumstances are causing them to move. And so I think that, one of the kind of core principles here is that we really want to meet students where they are and invite them into a shared learning culture. And, that's can feel pretty different for many students, but we're really interested in supporting students and helping take the time to understand who they are as learners and what supports they might need, and what their past profile might indicate for to guide them to future success.
Wonderful, thank you so much. I have a second question. She's obviously dabbled a little bit in some different languages as we've moved around the world, a little bit of Japanese, a little bit of German, but the most that she's gotten is at her current duty station here in South Korea, and she's just moved up to her second level in Korean. So I guess, not that she would be opposed to doing another language or anything like that, but is anybody ever come in and able to do a language that's not in the core curriculum for the language department?
I would say that usually that's very difficult, mostly based on the intensity that our language program represents. It's, fully immersion. And so if we were to be able to grant credits, it would have to be a program that's very similar to that. And I would say courses that are offered, online, it's very difficult to replicate that experience that we create in the classroom. We do, however, have different requirements based on the point of entry for the students. So, if the student is coming as a freshman, then they're required to complete 3 credits of language. But if they are coming in as a junior and they have, 2 years of high school language in a language that's not offered by our school, then, we accept those language credits towards graduation, towards the graduation requirement.
And Krista, your admissions rep should be able to sit down and go over the transcript and kind of look at what that scenario might be.
Okay, perfect. Thank you so much.
Somebody sent me this question directly, but I'm going to just pose it to the group because I think it's a great question. How do students balance their artistic work with their academic work? And do they? I added that last part, but go ahead, students, please.
I'm gonna hop in on this one. I would say that there are points, just like honestly, where it is hard to manage both at the same time. But when you really take the time to meet with your teachers and organize a schedule that is fit for you, kind of going back to Mr. Keenan's schedule 2 of our day, since we only have math 2 times a week, you have these free periods. Well, some of us have free periods. And for me, that's when I get 70% of my work for academics done. So then later in the day, I can work on my various projects or practice my instrument or something like that. So when it's mostly about making use of the time that's given to you, and Alana was also saying this, but we are given free time, like X blocks and the free periods, and even lunchtime, making use of lunch. That's when it's you just have to structure your schedule accordingly. And there are times where you can just focus on your academics and just focus on your art.
Yeah, I definitely agree with that. And I think also being a Walnut Hill student is again, a very individualized thing. And that goes into kind of all aspects of being a student here, whether it's social, arts, or academics. And I think you have to be a pretty self-motivated person to decide to go to an art school. Usually there's generally not so much encouragement on that side of things. I guess coming in as a VA, but and I'll have classes for visual arts, most of the time they end at 5:30. Sometimes I have night classes and they'll end at 9. But everybody's schedule is different. I think also based on what arts you're in, what your major is, and also what classes you're taking. And then additionally, like how you balance your academic time is also kind of on you making that decision when you want to spend time doing homework. If you're going to make kind of like a social sacrifice in some circumstances, and it's intense. Like, I'm not going to sugarcoat that. You know, having the amount of work that we do is different, is not what a lot of people are used to. But I think you're definitely able to balance the work, and the homework that we get for academics is very reasonable. Like, the amount of time that it takes me to do a subject is generally in the 30-minute range. Um, Maybe barring math because we have so many days in between. So I think all in all, it's very balanceable and very reasonable.
Yeah, if I can just add on, I think personally for me, I'm a dancer. I don't have much trouble balancing homework and my arts. I think that there's a lot of time in the day actually to get your work done, especially well during the academic day, as other people said, during like your math block, if you don't have math that day, during X block. For underclassmen especially, dorm parents really enforce a study hall from 8 to 9:30 that really helps you get that structure in place if you're a boarding student. But there are a lot of supports in place if you're struggling. Like when I'm struggling, you can go to the teacher, you can ask for an extension or just kind of explain your situation and be like, I feel like I'm spending too much too much time on this homework. Is there anything we can do? And your dorm parents also will help you if you're struggling. You can go to them, you can do your homework with them. They can like take your phone if that's like distracting you. I think for me, the struggle can be like balancing like social life when you add that in, like social life, academics, and arts. But I think that, it's something that is hard at first, and then the longer you're here, the more you just get used to it and learn how to adjust.
That's great. Just time for one or two more questions, I think. So if you have any lingering ones to put in the chat, please go ahead. Catherine, you started touching on this, but about how many hours a night of homework do you get assigned? So I wouldn't mind hearing from the faculty on this one also.
So I can say we aim to give 30 to 45 minutes of homework per class, or to really kind of try to contain ourselves to 30 to 45 minutes of homework per class each night. Sometimes it might be less than that, sometimes it might be more. But we really try to keep it, because we understand that students have their academic program and then they have arts classes. There's no after school at Walnut Hill. After their academic classes, they go on to more classes. And so we really try to be mindful of that. And I think that's one of the reasons that we really try to make our in-class experience hands-on, interactive, and meaningful, because when we're all there together, that's where I think so much of the learning happens.
And I would, agree in terms of the time, right? The goal is about 30 minutes a night. I think that as you may have kind of inferred from what students are saying, with math that doesn't meet each day, there's a day where your class isn't meeting, and the expectation is that you're working through some problems during that time. And so there is a great deal of independence and maturity that I think is expected of Walnut Hill students, and in terms of managing their time and on their workload and juggling all the demands of the program. And I think I've been struck by the students in this panel that they kind of embody that amazing maturity and kind of adult-like presence they have in here. And that's no mistake. I think the kids who thrive in this program are students who have that ability to kind of set their priorities and realize what they want to accomplish and manage their time accordingly, as well as, you know, recognizing when they need to advocate for themselves and seek supports, because it's not like it's always easy. And so I think that's the students we have in this panel are great representatives of students who thrive at Walnut Hill because they have shown they can kind of handle all the challenges that are presented by trying to do a dual curriculum of arts and academics.
That's great. So I'll open this to anybody. How different is the student life of a dorm student to the student life of a day student? Are they very separated? So let's hear from one day student and one boarding student. And I'll ask you, do you know immediately who's a day student and who's a boarding student? Why don't you guys go with that? Start there.
So I'm a boarding student and I'm currently in my dorm room. And personally, I really like my experience boarding in Walnut Hill. I'm learning new things every day. And it feels like half of my life is I'm living as an independent individual and half I'm being supported by like my friends in the dorm parents and all the teachers near us. And so as a person, I could say I've matured and changed a lot very positively over just the 2 years I've stayed at Walnut Hill. And I would recommend it to anybody that I just meet. I just tell them how amazing the experience is.
I'm a day student, and I'll say that the experience is very different. It's not negative, but I think it is different. There's a certain level that I think dorm students bond on that are kind of different than day students because you're not living together all the time. You know, you don't share every meal with each other, even though you might share most. You know, you do have that option though. I know some day students come in early and have breakfast, lunch, and stay for dinner too. So again, I think there's opportunities to get whatever kind of experience you want out of Walnut Hill. I know some day students who stay till all their friends, you know, go till their dorms and come in on the weekends and just hang out. And I also know day students who go home as soon as their classes are over and don't really want to come in over the weekend because they want to, like, you know, continue those friendships that they have at home. And I think that's also one of the benefits to being a day student is being able to have that independence and being able to, you know, really engage in your home life as well. But I wouldn't say that either way is missing out on anything. They're still, you know, I'm very close with my boarding student friends and I'm close with day student friends. And, you know, you're around each other pretty much all day long in the studios, in the classrooms anyway. So yeah, I think it's different, but I don't think there's so much of a disconnect.
That's great. That's great. So I think we have time for one more question. I'm going to leave it open to the guests on this call. If you want to put one last question into the chat, we'll give you a few seconds to type that in there. And while you're typing that, I want to thank you all again for joining us and listening to us talk about the school and the programs and our various experiences. Thank you to our panelists, of course. Fantastic to have you all here. All right, well, if there's no other questions right now, please always feel free to reach out to our office. I'm going to put the email address in the chat. So you can always reach out and we'll connect you with individuals if you have questions that go beyond the admissions process. But thank you again, faculty. Thank you again, students. Everybody's been so great. I hope you all have a wonderful night. And thank you again. Take care, everybody. Bye-bye.